The prototype suit. Before Mark Grayson became invincible, before the famous costume, before the huge battles, everything started with something much more basic. The prototype suit was essentially his very first shot at being a superhero, put together right after he discovered his powers. At that stage, he did not even have a hero name yet. He was just a teenager experimenting with what he could do, trying to understand how to use his abilities to help people. Because of that, this suit represents that rough early phase where everything still feels unfamiliar and uncertain. The design is as simple as possible, but that is exactly why it works. It consists of an orange long-sleeve shirt, blue pants with yellow stripes, gloves, and a mask with goggles. Nothing high-tech, no special fabric, no complex armor, just something he could quickly put together and wear. It has that homemade costume feeling, like something halfway between a Halloween outfit and a starter superhero uniform. And honestly, that matches Mark perfectly at this point in his story. This suit is also connected to some key early moments. Mark wears it during his first real attempts at hero work, including his encounter with Titan. Those moments are not about winning major fights. They are about learning. He is still figuring out how strong he is, how fast he can move, and what it truly means to be a hero. The suit becomes part of that learning process, almost like training wheels for the beginning of his superhero journey. This is Mark in his purest and most unfiltered form, before the trauma, before the heavier responsibility really sets in. There is no pressure yet, no huge legacy hanging over him, just a kid trying to do the right thing. And that is why, even though it is the least advanced suit he ever wears, it is still one of the most important. It marks the exact moment Mark Grayson takes his first real step toward becoming invincible. The bulletproof suit. After Mark's first outing, Omni Man takes him to Art Rosenbaum's shop to get a proper superhero costume, and that is where the bulletproof suit comes in. This was one of the first professional designs created specifically for him. Unlike his homemade prototype, this suit was actually built with purpose and functionality in mind. For a brief moment, this could have been Invincible's official look, but Mark simply did not connect with it. What made this suit different was its disc-based system. It included special plates designed to absorb kinetic energy, which meant it could lessen the impact of attacks, basically making it more bulletproof. That is where the concept behind the suit really stands out. It was not just meant to make him look like a hero, it was built to help him survive real fights. It also kept the goggles Mark liked, showing that some of the early design ideas still carried over. Even with all of those upgrades, Mark rejected it. The main reason was simple. It just did not feel right. The bright orange and yellow colors were too flashy for him, and the overall look felt awkward in his eyes. More importantly, it did not feel like his identity. That moment is actually very important because it shows that Mark is not only choosing a costume, he is deciding how he wants to be seen as a hero. And this version did not match that image. Even though Mark turned it down, the suit did not go unused. It was later given to Zandale Randolph, who became the hero, Bulletproof. So in a way, this suit still became part of the Invincible legacy, just not through Mark himself. It is kind of ironic because what failed for one hero ended up becoming the defining look of another. The original suit. This is the point where everything finally comes together. After rejecting the first professional design, Mark at last figures out who he wants to be. Not only in terms of powers, but also in terms of identity. Once he chooses the name Invincible, the suit immediately gains real meaning. It is no longer just a costume, it becomes his symbol. This is the moment Mark stops experimenting and fully steps into the role of a superhero with a clear identity and purpose. The original Invincible suit is simple, but extremely effective. It has a yellow mask with goggles, a bold yellow design running down the torso, and a combination of blue and black accents that create that recognizable M shape across the chest and shoulders. The colors are bright without being overwhelming, and the whole design feels clean and intentional. It is the kind of look that instantly stands out while still feeling practical and grounded. This is the suit Mark wears during his first true missions as Invincible. Whether he is stopping criminals or taking on larger threats, this costume becomes tied to his earliest growth as a hero. It represents that stage where he is still learning, still making mistakes, but also starting to prove himself. Every win, every loss, every lesson happens in this suit, which is exactly why it becomes so iconic. This version of Mark is hopeful, determined, and still believes he can do good without losing himself in the process. Even much later in the story, when things become darker and more complicated, this suit always stands as a reminder of who he was at the beginning. The blue and black suit, often called the symbiote suit. This costume marks a major turning point in Mark's story. This is not the same optimistic kid anymore. By the time he puts this on, he has already gone through brutal battles, major losses, and situations that forced him to grow up far too quickly. The brighter colors are gone, replaced with darker tones that reflect exactly where he is mentally. This suit feels less like a superhero outfit and more like armor for someone who has been pushed too far. From a design standpoint, it keeps the basic structure of his original look, but strips it down. The color palette changes to deep blue and black. The details are simplified, and certain elements like the knee pads are removed. It is more minimal, more serious, and honestly, more intimidating. The goggles now feature white accents, and the full design feels sharper and more controlled. It is the kind of suit that instantly tells you this version of Mark is not playing around anymore. It is also linked to some of the most intense moments in the series, especially events like the Invincible War and his fight with Conquest. These are not just ordinary battles, they are survival. This is Mark operating in survival mode. He is pushed to his absolute limit, both physically and emotionally. During this period, his behavior also starts to shift. He becomes more aggressive and more willing to cross lines he normally would not. Whether the suit is literally cursed or not, it becomes tied to that darker side of him. Eventually, Mark chooses to walk away from it, and that decision says everything. To him, the suit represents pain, anger, and the version of himself he does not want to become. He feels like wearing it affected his mindset, pushing him toward worse choices, even killing. So returning to his original suit is not just about appearance, it is about rejecting that darker path. The Coalition uniform marks another major shift in Mark's journey, not only in terms of design, but also in terms of role. At this point, he is no longer just protecting Earth as a traditional superhero. He is now working with the Coalition of Planets, operating on a much larger intergalactic scale. This suit reflects that change perfectly. It is less about personal identity and more about purpose. Mark is not just invincible anymore. He is part of something much larger than himself. Unlike his earlier suits, this one is not unique to him. It is a standardized uniform worn by other members of the Coalition, including Omni Man and Oliver. The design features a sleek blue and gray color palette, a white emblem on the chest, and a more structured appearance overall. It even includes a cape and collar, giving it a more official, almost military look. It feels less personal and more like something worn as part of a team or organization. While wearing this suit, Mark takes on a very different kind of role. Instead of simply reacting to threats, he is now sent on missions and functions more like a soldier or an agent. Whether he is investigating conflicts or working alongside other powerful beings, his responsibilities become more strategic. This part of his story shows just how far he has come, from a street-level hero to someone involved in galaxy-level conflicts. Even though the suit looks polished and functional, it is missing something important, and that is identity. It does not represent Mark the same way his original suit does. It is not about who he is, it is about what he is doing. And that is why it never fully sticks as his defining look. Eventually, Mark returns to his classic suit, choosing something that reflects him rather than just his job. The Coalition uniform matters, but it is more about duty than personality. The Emperor suit. By the time Mark reaches this stage, he is no longer simply invincible, the Earth hero we started with. He has become the leader of the Viltrumites, carrying responsibility not just for one planet, but for an entire empire. The Emperor suit reflects that transformation perfectly. This is not a costume made for stopping crime in the streets. It is designed for ruling, commanding, and representing power on a galactic level. The final Emperor suit stands out immediately because of its clean and regal appearance. The color palette shifts to white, gold, and blue, giving it a more noble and balanced look compared to the darker or more aggressive designs that came before. It often includes elements like a long robe, a high collar, and flowing details that make it feel more like royal attire than battle gear. Everything about it communicates authority, control, and evolution. Mark has gone through everything: loss, war, anger, and doubt, and emerged on the other side more mature and more composed. This version of him is no longer driven by emotional trauma. He is balanced. And the suit reflects that by blending pieces of his past, his original colors and identity, with his present role as a viltrumite leader. It is the perfect visual representation of who he has become. This is essentially peak Mark Grayson, not only in terms of power, but in identity as well. He is no longer trying to prove himself, and no longer struggling to figure things out. He knows exactly who he is. The Emperor's suit represents the end of his journey, from a kid in a homemade outfit to a fully realized leader. In simple terms, this suit represents the ultimate version of Invincible. Now I want to hear from you. Which Invincible suit is your favorite? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.